Hello, welcome to BFM Business Finance Matters podcast, episode 5, Trevor.
Episode 5. Where's the time going, David? Where is the time going? We are in the second half of the year already.
The nights are getting shorter.
Thanks for that, Dave.
Summer came and has gone.
I think mine was for about 2 hours on, I think it was about June the 24th, around about 3 o'clock.
Do you know what? I'm sure we're not the only family that's done this, but as soon as that hot weather came, we went out and invested in a new summer duvet, Trev.
What, for the whole family?
No, just for me and my better half. We thought, let's get out and let's get ourselves a new summer duvet. It is on the bed, but do you know what? We're struggling. We had to put a blanket on last night. Summer is over.
So, we've got an exciting guest on the podcast today, David. We had intimated his presence. He's turned up. He's in fine fettle, and it's great to have him for reasons you're going to understand very, very early on in this podcast.
Yes, indeed. Stephen Bassett is who we're talking about, and Stephen is our chairperson for the Guild. The Guild is something that we have spoken about before. This is the podcast that we have chosen to bring Stephen in to put some content behind the Guild, what it is, what it's doing, why we're doing it, where we want it to go in the future.
Indeed, he won't mind me saying he's small in stature, but he's massive in our industry. He's worked as a lender, an intermediary. He's been on the trade body board. He's an NED. I mean, what hasn't he done? But I know I am, and I know everybody in the Guild is delighted that he's at the helm.
Indeed, a glittering career behind him, and I'm sure, thankfully, a glittering career in front of him. We thank you for his time and commitment for getting the Guild up and running, and thanks to you, Trevor, as well, for putting the time and effort that you have done to get the Guild open. So, without further ado, we now introduce our next guest, Stephen Bassett. Stephen, how are you?
I'm pretty well considering. Thank you.
Exactly. So, Stephen, can you just explain, you've had some challenges recently with the health. Just give us a little bit of background as to what's happened.
Yeah, of course. I'll keep it short because it's a long story, but it was actually a heart attack. And I'm 70 now and was as fit as a fiddle, or so I thought until 5 weeks ago. And it came as a bit of a shock. Blues and twos to Harefield Hospital at 3:30 in the morning and straight into the operating theatre. I have to tell you, if it wasn't the brilliance of 111, the ambulance service and the NHS, I wouldn't be here talking to you now. So first, thanks to all of them.
Great to hear, Stephen. And obviously, if at any time you want to break, then please put your hand up and Trevor and I will wait patiently for you, okay?
Okay.
So, everyone, let's introduce Stephen and why we've asked him on. And we're grateful he's here. We've known Stephen for a while now in a professional capacity. I don't know how many years it is, but it doesn't matter. But the main reason Stephen's here today, you remember that when we talked last time, we talked about the Guild gates were open. The Guild of Business Finance Professionals is now founded, and we've started, and we have a membership, and we have a controlling committee, we have a treasurer, we have some fool that's decided to be the vice chair, but most importantly, we've got Stephen Bassett as our chairperson for the Guild, and that is why we've invited him on today.
And the fool, Trevor, of course, is you. You're referring to you as the vice chair of the Guild. So we've got two very key people that have been behind the Guild. And Stephen, I guess if we just start off by giving a little introduction to yourself, and we've got a fairly extensive and impressive CV, which we don't have time to go over today. But if you just want to go over everything that you've done in your career, and we'll sort of take it from there. And in the meantime, we'll just sit back and listen, Trev. Put your slippers on, get your pipe on. Stephen Bassett, tell us about you.
Okay. Well, the important thing to know is I've spent 50 years in the lending sector. And that has been a wonderful career, helping literally thousands and thousands of organisations grow and prosper. And as a little example, I live near Milton Keynes now. And many years ago, I can't remember exactly when, but I was helping the Development Council of Milton Keynes finance the equipment they needed to have to build it. And now I'm almost living in it. So that's a good example, I think. Moving on to earlier days, I left school with a really useful A-level. You'll never guess what it was. Do you guess what it was? It was geology.
Geology. I was almost right with gymnastics, but it began with a G.
Yeah. Anyway, back in the day, that got me a job as the assistant manager in a finance company.
Naturally.
And from that point, I never looked back. I have to say, I did add a few qualifications later on, and I'm very proud of an MBA from the Open University. And that really, I think, without diving into the company, is my story. And here I am. I sit on the board of a number of small companies, all operating in the same sector, the lending sector, one way or another. And the Guild's been born out of that experience and listening to a lot of other people in the industry who want to move things forward further fast.
Good. So, Stephen, what do you think is at the heart of the Guild? I mean, we know, not everybody knows, but we know we have, obviously, the parties involved. We've got intermediaries, we've got lenders, we've got trade bodies, regulators, government. And let's be frank, the most important sector, I think, is, SME UK PLC. So what's at the heart of the Guild? Why now?
That's a very good question. The whole of my career, I've worked alongside a lot of brokers. I've been a broker. I've been a funder. Brokers are people who help companies find the funds they need to do whatever it is they need to do. They are, by and large, very skilled and professional. There are trade bodies that exist that help them do that very well. But as individuals, a lot of brokers feel hugely frustrated that they can't get their voices heard as well as they should be in the marketplace. And that they have to compete with some players who don't necessarily look after the customer's interest as well as they could. And some lenders that perhaps have more of an eye on volumes of business and customer care and quality. The majority do look after customers and do try to do things properly. But the Guild was born really of the need to fix some of those things that are not working very well and help trade bodies and SMEs get that sorted out faster.
So what you're saying, and I know we've tried to say it before on previous podcasts, but I think it's a message we just have to keep relaying so everyone is clear on what we're doing. But if we do look at the trade bodies, for example, 3 of them that we're aware of in our industry, that's the NACFB, and there's FIBA, and there's the FLA, and there are others. But Trevor, perhaps you can just give us a clear distinction between what it is that the Guild is trying to do compared to perhaps what the trade bodies are doing. And let's be clear here, we're not going up against them. This is just to try and enhance everything that's going on in the market. And as you said, Stephen, and other people have said, there is just something missing in our industry. And this is where the Guild hopefully will step in and fill that gap.
I think it's very simple, Dave. I think, for me, for where I sit, and I'm sure the Guild members will reflect this and repeat it and believe it, is that the Guild does something that lenders aren't doing, trade bodies aren't doing, the regulators certainly isn't doing, and goodness only knows we're recording on polling day where we're going to go politically. It's another whole podcast entirely, I would imagine. But the Guild is doing something fundamentally important, and that is reaching out to business owners. And that is the crucial difference. It is saying to business owners, look, there's a bunch of professional people here. They've got wide experience, wide knowledge, wide understanding, far more contacts to the financial services sector than any business owner would ever have by definition. Use them. Come and get that guidance. Come and get that reassurance that you will be looked after.
Yeah, I agree. And I think something that I've certainly been involved with for a number of years, and I know the Guild is enhancing the message that I was trying to give on many occasions to various government bodies, etc., is that since that bank manager role disappeared back in 2007, 2008, and I know this is fact because we've spoken about it so many times, but business owners to this day, many of them still don't quite know who to turn to when they need something, whether it's just a steer, some support, or if they are looking for any form of business finance. And as we know, there are so many options out there. They just don't know where to turn. And I'm hoping, and I know that other people, including founder members, are looking to try and correct that and make sure that when that business owner wakes up in the morning, and we've already had one business owner on the pod previously, they know where to go and they know who to phone. And that, I guess that, as we said earlier, that's the something, isn't it, that's missing in our industry at the moment.
I think if I could just add, the guild differs in that it's a badge of professionalism for an individual, not a company. And that badge indicates a safe place for a borrower to go and seek help. And there are others. As you said, we're not going up against them. We just want to enhance what's going on in the market, all the improvements that are necessary. The guild is very focused on looking after both borrowers and lenders. You can't just join it. It's a guild. You must be recommended and you must sign up to the charter, which covers the behaviours that you've got to operate under.
Yeah, that's key, Stephen, I have to say. And, without wanting to tar the broker brush, because we know that the industry, like many industries, isn't perfect. And one of the words that I don't like using from time to time is the word broker. I think it does conjure up to some people an idea of what that individual, that business does. And hence the guild is known as the Guild for Business Finance Professionals. And we keep talking about the guild isn't open to everyone. And that the reason is that we want to make sure that we are identified as a group of people that has a certain skill set, has the experience, certainly has the expertise and the level of professionalism that can provide the support that many, well, as we said before, we don't know how many thousands, but there's many thousands of businesses that are still looking for that support. And it's been documented by everybody, including the British Business Bank. So we know there's a problem, and hopefully the Guild is the answer.
Yeah, you've asked me before what's the benefit of a business working with an intermediary. And the point on that is that smaller businesses just cannot afford to permanently hire the expertise needed to find their way around the finance market or understand all the options available. They often need their hand held by someone who does, especially as all their own time and skill is spent running their own business. And in the short term, or short to medium term, the Guild must find as many ways as possible to make businesses aware of it and how to contact it or its members or trade bodies that are doing similar things for a safe passage for them. And this podcast is actually really good, one of those ways. Shortly, there'll be a website that customers can access to.
Okay, there's loads and loads of questions I want to cover. And I just thought maybe we could perhaps talk about Stephen Bassett, the man.
Hold on a minute. Hold on. I've got something here.
What?
I've heard that Mr. Bassett did once fly over the White Cliffs of Dover in a Spitfire, and he was at the controls.
Yeah, only momentarily, I have to say. But yeah, that was a wonderful experience a few years ago when I left full-time employment as an expensive ticking of a bucket list box, if you know what I mean.
Please tell me, Stephen, just for my own entertainment, you were wearing the outfit as well? The Biggles hat, the goggles and the leather jacket.
Yeah, I don't think there were any goggles. I think they've moved beyond that. But I was wearing the pilot outfit and great fun.
What about boats? You've got a little bit of experience on boats as well, Mr. Bassett, haven't you?
One of my worries with this recent medical intervention is will I be able to pick up all these adventurous hobbies that I had? But yeah, motorcycling, kayaking, dinghy sailing, all of that. But it's all in abeyance at the moment, and I have to wait to see.
I've got a jet ski. Does that count?
Yes, it can. Anything adventurous can.
But Stephen, going back to the Guild and really where we are now and where we're looking to get to in the future.
Today, it's actually quite difficult for a business owner to locate and find a broker to help them. Obviously, if you Google these things, you'll find all of those companies with the biggest budgets.
I think we've spoken about this so many times, haven't we, Trevor? the power of social media is such that that's the go-to, isn't it? That's the default go-to. I mean, I do it all the time. I'm looking, whatever I'm looking for, straight to Google. And I'm sure that the same is with business owners, whatever it is that they're looking for, whether it's finance or widgets, the default go-to is the Googles, and that's the search process. And you're quite right, Stephen. You know, I'm very aware of it. It's the same with the lender market. When you type in anything like business loans or finance for businesses, you can guess which lenders come up on that front page, and it's driven by how much money they've got in terms of marketing budget. And I think that is the challenge. And I speak from experience. I know that other guild members can tell you the same thing, but I've come across businesses that for whatever reason have gone down a particular business finance route. And it's when you see an agreement or the structure of that particular facility, you go white, because you just think, how on earth has that happened? Well, you can't blame the business owner, because at the end of the day, they've gone down a route which they felt was best fit for them, which is typically going on the search engine route and trying to find someone. And ultimately, if they've been given an offer, they've tended to take it without looking at the market. And this is something that I'm very sensitive about. And I've spoken, I know, Trevor, you have done the same. We've spoken to lenders direct and tried to ask them, what is the benefit of businesses coming to you directly? Would it not benefit both you, the lender, and the business if they come through, for want of a better word, an advisory pathway? So at least when that lender has the opportunity to look at an application, they know that it's come through a good pair of hands and a skilled professional that knows exactly what he or she is doing.
Well, I'll start somewhere else. With digitization and automation, borrowers and lenders are increasingly able to deal directly with each other, but only really for vanilla situations. A short-term cash loan for a borrower of good credit standing is not a problem. But how many business scenarios are really that simple?
Lenders have one of two decisions to make. They either lend or they don't. There's no grey, there's no alternative offering, there's no have you considered this, have you considered that. That's the role of the business finance intermediary. Those folks are the people that understand the danger that SMEs have, as you said, David, and I think you've also said, Stephen, is we know what happens. There's a business need, or there's a need in the business for cash to either fund an asset, whatever it may be. And at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, after they've probably put 12, 14 hours into the day, they're sat there surfing. And there's a vulnerability that these people have got. And that's the bit that worries me. And that's what you said there, David. It's almost take any offer, take the first offer, but where's the measurement as to whether that is the right offer for that business?
I agree. There are many ways in which businesses can gain access to finance. The British Business Bank is very visual in what it does. There are a number of investment groups around the country. Southwest Investment Group is one that's near me. It's not that they're not there to help. They are there to help. But I guess what we're trying to determine is that the best fit?
Yeah. I utterly agree with you. And it's one of the things to really help with. What a business needs to know is dealing with someone who really understands its market and really understands the equipment that's needed in that market, or the type of finance that's needed in that market, and the funders that specialize in those sectors.
Yes. And I think that's important. I mean, there is the rush to the bottom. There's the rush to be quickest. There's the rush to do this. There's the rush to do that.
Yeah, also the offer from the funder. The broker knows whether it's fair or not.
Yeah, Stephen, that's a really good point. And again, I just talked from something that happened with me recently. You know, looking at that offer or looking at the in-principle offer, we know as professionals what to expect typically in terms of fees, interest rates, security requirements, terms, conditions. We've been around long enough to understand what a typical offer would look like. And if we see something that perhaps is not something we recognize, and this has happened with me recently, then we're back to the lender to clarify it and maybe amend it if we need to. So even before we've gone back to the business owner, we've already done all that tick box exercise, and we've had a look at it, and we're happy that the offer that's been given is a good offer. Otherwise, we wouldn't dare go back to our customer if we didn't think it was a good offer, because that puts our reputation at stake. what is it that we're looking for as a guild member? What's the criteria? What is it that will enable an application from a business finance professional to join the guild?
Well, I think the main thing is they have to have been doing it for some time. The charter actually lays down a 5-year period. If you've been doing it less than that, you can't qualify. But obviously you can qualify later when you have. It'll be about your reputation in the market. So the guild members will be part of the screening process. If they have no reason or belief that somebody shouldn't be joining the guild, then they'll get in. And they all compete with each other actively. One of the problems with guilds in the old days was they would become a little bit protective of their members. That's not the point here. We're protective of the funder and the end user borrower.
So if we had a magic wand, how do you see the future role of an independent business finance professional evolving?
That's a very good question. I think the guild's job, working alongside the existing trade bodies, is as a catalyst to get businesses much more aware of who can help them, what the products in the marketplace are, what's fair and reasonable, and they need someone to hold their hand. So I think the profession, if I can call it that, of intermediaries will continue to increase in its professionalism and be able to do a better job for customers. Does that help?
I agree. I think for me, the biggest challenge, and this is where I want to see it evolve, is hence the reason why we're doing this podcast and hence why we keep using the word signpost, because it's such a good way of explaining what we're trying to do. But it's to make sure that our roles are more visible. And I can only see one way forward to ensure that this happens, and that's coming from above. So whether it's trying to get the government to recognise what it is that we do and to support that process, because we know factually that there is a problem that's been given, and we know factually that what we do works, because that's been proven as well.
There's also something I'd like to add. It might be sort of more a closing point, but actually because of the history of banking and finance and lending, it sort of has a bit of a shadow over it. Actually, funders that are prepared to lend into the market are stimulating the growth of the economy. That is how the economy grows. The brokers that help the customers find the right funder and the right product, financial product, are also helping the economy grow. So all the players, all the businesses, all the funders, all the brokers, all the trade bodies, they should actually be very proud of their sector. Without it, everything would stagnate. So,
yeah, I agree. And that relationship with lenders, as we touched on earlier, is also something we want to improve upon, and making sure that we're not seen as quote unquote, someone said it the other day, second-class citizens. We are seen as professionals that are very much part of the process. And without us, in theory, certainly guild members anyway, without us, it's going to make life a lot more challenging for everyone.
Yeah, and there are a lot of funders who do work with brokers in exactly that vein. It's worth us saying that. But you're quite right. We need to make sure that carries on and gets better and better.
And that's an important point, Stephen. I mean, you know, David, that I talk incessantly about end users, relationships and all the rest of it. There isn't a liquidity gap here, folks. There is enough cash out there. It's getting the right type of facility to the right business. Yeah. And it goes back to my point, doesn't it? It goes back to, it's all right, XYZ lender having XYZ hundreds of millions of pounds to lend, but they're only ever going to make one of two decisions. They'll either lend or they won't. They won't be providing SMEs or businesses of any size or shape advice or guidance, or actually saying, do you know what, we'd like to lend you this money, but we don't think it's right for you at this moment in time. Have you ever heard a lender say that?
Well, no. And it would be nice if a lender turns around and said, look, this isn't something for us, but you know what? We've got somebody who we work with, who we recommend. I think that does go on to a certain degree, but it'd be great if we could escalate that. But also something you just touched on there, Trevor, again, just a recent experience of mine. The first lender we approached said no. The second lender we approached said no. And the third lender we approached said yes. But you can imagine if that business owner had gone through that pathway, he probably would have walked away after the first decline or the first no. And that's, again, where we as business professionals are trying to make sure that not just the business owner, but making sure that we find the right lender that's got the appetite to lend. Because you're quite right, there is money out there to lend, but everyone has a different criteria. Everyone has a different way of working. And that's a skill set in itself, because there's so many lenders out there. It's trying to find the right home for it.
It is. But I think there needs to be a recognition, particularly among smaller businesses. It's a bit like the consumer side. We obviously, in the Guild, we're only looking at what's called B2B lending or corporate lending. But in the consumer world, you don't go and borrow if you can't see your way to pay back. And if you did seek to borrow, other people would say, I'm not lending to you because I can't see how you're going to pay back. And there has to be this realization that there is a gap, the credit worthiness gap, isn't it? So a lot of small businesses are not yet strong enough to borrow.
So we're recording this on election day, but we don't know the results yet, chaps. We don't know who's going to win. I guess the general feeling is that Labour will probably take over from the Conservatives, but whoever it is, I can't see the current economic challenges changing in any way. But what do you foresee for business owners and lenders, Steve? Where do you see the challenges going forward?
Well, I alluded to it before. We all float around on the underlying economy, and our job is to survive and hopefully prosper. The challenges are the same, and the economics vary. In the lending world, people want to borrow money when there's a recession because they're short of money. They want to borrow money in a boom because they're trying to expand, and everything in between. So it won't go away. The need to borrow or the ability to lend, it won't go away. And somebody needs to hold the hands of the people involved and help join the dots.
No, you're right, Stephen. I mean, the political landscape is what it is. Perhaps on a serious note, I think it's looking inevitable that I think is it the fourth Labour government ever. But do you know what I feel and what I hear, and I am suffering from it myself? I sense in the country, generally, there is just a complete and utter apathy with the whole thing.
Absolutely.
I sense there is a disengagement. People of all generations are just fed up with a short term. Every 4 to 5 years, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I just think people are fed up with it.
They are.
And I'm sorry to say it, guys, but I just don't think our political system works anymore. It's too short-termed. It's too... I'm looking at Stephen's face here. I'm trying not to wind him up here because he's going to be ready to go in a minute. But what do we have in the economy that really is there for the long term and there's a plan for the long term?
Well, small businesses is where the backbone of the economy lies and has always lied. So my feelings are short but sweet. But if we can't get small businesses moving forward, then we're going to have a challenge.
Weren't you, Stephen? You were commander of something.
I had a bit of a varied and exciting career, but one of the things I did when I left school, I was considering joining the Navy, but the career prospects and 9 years in the grey funnel line didn't really work for me, so I joined the reserves, and I was in the reserves for, I think it was 15 years or so, and I joined as a junior rating and progressed through the ranks. Then I got selected to be an officer candidate, and I became a acting sub-lieutenant, and eventually I was retired out as a lieutenant commander. So I'm Lieutenant Commander Bassett.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. I knew there was something there. Forgive me, Stephen. Had they moved from sales to steam or something by that stage?
And when I left, it was still on sales.
Well, look, I think we've got through this podcast remarkably well. Stephen, you're still looking fine health. So thank you for bearing with us and appreciate the time. It's been really useful. It's obviously just part of what we're trying to do in terms of the Guild and its progression. Trevor, won't we? Will continue to update the podcast listeners with how we progress with the Guild. And ultimately, Stephen, we appreciate all your time and effort as the chairperson of this very important organisation and very important process that we're all buying into for all the reasons that we've already spoken about during this podcast.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Good to see you, Stephen. Good to see you in good health. And I'm sure that listeners will have enjoyed what you had to say.
Bye for now.
Take care.
Bye. Oh, that was great. Nice to have Stephen on, Trevor, wasn't it? He's a man full of experience, a wealth of knowledge, and it was so great to have him on, especially bearing in mind his recent health scare.
Do you know what, Dave? He's not just a passionate man. He's got a good sense of humour. And do you know what? Most of us have in this guild. What's life without a little bit of a laugh, a little bit of a smile every now and again, and it comes in truckloads with Stephen. I was delighted to see him today, Dave, and I'm sure you were as well.
Oh, what a great experience to fly Spitfire. That must be a story that he brings out in the pub every now and again.
I was listening to him. I did know a little bit about that. I've seen a couple of pictures. He would have loved that, but wouldn't you? Wouldn't you?
100%. 100%. Good. Well, look, hopefully this will go out to all and sundry, as we always hope it does, and it can't be done without your help, everybody. So those listening, please share, subscribe, etc., and let's get this message out about the Guild and, of course, the reasons why the Guild has been founded and launched, and hopefully we can make a difference.
2 things from me, Dave. 2 quick things from me. Website's coming. That'll be easy. You'll be able to find it yourselves. Up until then, get in touch with Dave, get in touch with me. If you are that business owner, if you are concerned about what it is that you need to do, think of doing, and need some help, then just get in touch with us and we'll put you in front of the right people. And the second thing from me, just to finish off, come on, South America. You're letting the side down.
Why is that?
Well, because we've not had anybody listen to us in South America.
Oh, I see. Yes, sorry. I might even just fly out there, download it and come back.
Do it.
No one will know. No one will know.
Go to Spitfire.
Right, on that note, Trev, wishing you a great day, great week.
Thank you.
And look forward to catching up with you soon. And we'll end with our normal goodbyes, which is a goodbye from him.
And it's a goodbye from me.
Take care. All the best. Bye for now. Thank you again for listening to BFM. This episode was sponsored by Number 8 Business Finance. Number 8 are an independent firm that offers an advisory-led service to those business owners that are seeking guidance or wanting access to a wide range of business finance products. If you are interested in sponsoring future episodes, or if you'd like to add your comments to this podcast, then you can contact us via Instagram and Twitter. Just search for Business Finance Matters. We hope you enjoyed this episode. All feedback is welcome. Please subscribe, because this will help the cause. It will help us get the signposting and the voice that we need for our industry and, of course, for the SMEs alike. Thank you again for listening, and look forward to having you back for future episodes.